Hello, everyone. Welcome to One Liners, a weekly series centered around the performance marketing landscape. My name is Joey Liner, and I am your host from Liner Connections. This is a series is centered around key influencers and players within the space. So I am pleased to introduce my good friend Matt Tillman, who is our guest today. Just a quick update on formats from last week's debut episode. We are going to go about 15 minutes instead of 10, just so we can get a couple extra questions in here from Matt. So, Matt, please introduce yourself.
Hey, Joey, thank you very much for having me, by the way. One-liners is great, and I'm so pleased to be participating in this with you. I'm Matt Tillman. I'm the president of Rate Marketplace. Rate Marketplace is a lead generator in the performance marketing space, primarily within mortgage. We're also, Rate Marketplace is actually owned by Suited Connector. So we are also in the home services as well as the insurance verticals as well. So I've been around the industry for the last 23 years at this point. Started with a company called Get Smart many years ago. It's currently a lending tree property. Went off to start my own lead gen company called Fast Find. That was then funded by Dan Gilbert and his investment group. We ended up selling that company off to Bankrate. I ran sales for Bankrate for a couple of years before then moving on to a company called AdChemy, which is where Rate Marketplace was born. From there, sold Rate Marketplace to an entity in New York called Zeta Global. And from there, in June of 2019, ended up selling the entity to Suited Connector in Denver.
What a
So it's
ride,
been
man.
quite the run.
Yeah, what a journey. I think you're one of the, I've been doing this for 20 years. You're on 23. I always say you're one of the guys that's beaten me. Um, but yeah, let's jump right in and
Sure.
staying within the mortgage theme because obviously you've had tremendous background there with a lot of your stops along the way. Let's you just came back from the annual Mortgage Bankers Association conference. So what was, given what's going on, what was the sentiment? How are the leaders of the conference kind of working their way through the topics and the reality of what we're going through?
Sure. I will really sum it up in one word. I mean, and that's really optimism. Um, we're going through tough times, and it's not, while it's different than what we saw in 2007, 2008, I know that the industry looks at this as a time of really just kind of reset.
Yeah.
Rates are higher. That is no surprise. We knew that this time was coming, but I think the difference here is that we didn't anticipate the speed by which this would take place. And I say optimism because I think that all of those that were in attendance were really looking ahead to the future and realizing that this is only going to be in place for a matter of time. We are going to see a decline in rates again. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that rates are going to get down to the 2.5% level that we were once at, but in time, we are indeed going to see rates tick back down again. So while you have consumers that may be in market for mortgages today and maybe taking out higher interest rates, they will have an opportunity to refinance. Joy, one stat I want to share with you. I actually read
Yeah.
this morning in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Black Knight reported that there are really only about 133,000 consumers that can save money in today's rates,
Wow.
given today's rates. And that's down from a peak of over 19 million consumers in late 2020.
Yeah.
So that's
Amazing.
some serious contraction in the
Yeah.
market itself. But what I will say, though, is that at every level of this industry, this is a time that we all must come together and
Yes.
stick together to be able to help each other through the toughest times. Whether you're a marketing company, a service provider, um, a wholesale lender, wherever you might be in the ecosystem of our industry, this is where it's really important that we, hunker down, as I've heard several times, and
Yeah.
come together as an industry in order to weather the storm.
Yeah, in fact, I think you and I got even stronger. Our relationship got stronger in the '07, '08 crisis because, look, you've lived through multiple refinance waves. you've lived through. And the financial crisis. I mean, there's ups and downs, but the point is you've stuck with it over the long term because mortgages aren't going anywhere. And like you said, there'll be another refi wave at some point. It may not be when, back down to the historically low rates, but at some point it will drop once the economy clears through. Do you think this is going to be as bad as '07, '08?
I don't, because I think at that point in time, we were dealing with a section of the market that was basically being wiped away. I
Yeah.
mean, the whole subprime market went away. And I
Yep.
know when I started in this industry, the primary consumer that we were marketing to was the subprime consumer.
Yeah.
This is different,
Yeah.
right? This is product driven.
Yeah.
This is about availability and that tangible benefit to the consumer. And unfortunately, that just doesn't exist at as high of a rate as we've seen previously. So, we have a downturn right now, and it's something that we're just going to have to face in the months to come. Eventually, I think sometime next year, we'll see somewhat of a downturn in terms of the interest rate market. But it's all a matter of time. We don't know when that's going to happen.
I well said. I agree. Let's shift gears for a second, just because, man, I'm so honored to have you here as my second guest. After George Floyd's murder, you gave one of the most impactful speeches to, I wouldn't say speech, it was more of just, it was our weekly or meeting that we had for our Leads Council, now Consumer Consent Council Board of Directors. You shook me and a bunch of our colleagues in a right way, knowing that, a lot of us thought that uh, we were already part of, DE and I in helping it within our space. But I think a lot of us really just you woke us up to say that we were not. And I think, can you share a little bit to our both of our audience, because both you and I have a pretty big community on LinkedIn. Can you share a bit on what spoke to the team about? Because again, so impactful.
Yeah, and I just kind of changed the background here. I would say that, this picture here really defines the reason, right? This was my why.
Yeah.
This is a picture of my daughter along with her best friend. They decided that they would put together these posters and took probably one of the most powerful pictures I've ever seen in my life. Um, this picture was taken prior to the discussion with the Leads Council. But what I realized was that it was my time to really step up and have a voice. And, being one of the only, Black individuals that was at the table for Leads Council, it was important for my perspective to be heard and shared. Um, and the thing about it is that it's not anything that's specific to any one person, right? This conversation is one that's about what we can all do that's just right for the community and the world that we live in. And it's about making things aware, making people aware, making this an obvious discussion about what we can all do together to better the environment that we work and live in. Leeds Council was the perfect place for that. And, I'll commend Rob Seaver as well. It was a great conversation that Rob and I had leading up to that discussion. That was really, a white man's perspective and lack of understanding and the inquisitive nature of Rob asking me about what we can do better or what more can we do. And it really started off with help me understand the problem. And so when we had this discussion, we talked about what the problem was, but that was through a different lens that other people had. My lens, I think, really just brought that conversation to the spotlight. And I will tell you, one of the things that I love more than anything at this point is to see the increase in diversity that we have within the industry. Um, Close friend of mine, Sean Reed McGee, and I started an organization called Blacks in Performance Marketing, and along with several others. And
Yeah.
one of the reason for that was because we found ourselves at conferences being the only two Black people walking by each other and giving each other the head nod, and we never stopped and talked to each other. So what we realized is that being able to talk about the challenges that minorities have, or underrepresented people have, is so important in the growth and development of our industry. And what we see today at conferences is this melting pot. It's full of diverse people.
Yeah.
And I think we've come such a long way in such a short period of time. So, I commend Leads Council, which is now Consumer Consent Council. It's also part of PACE now,
Yeah.
and everyone else that's been involved in helping amplify this conversation to making it what it is today.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that story about walking past each other and not interacting and being able to, it's and you're right. Like when you told it to Rob's perspective, that's what really like how he just came back and said, he immediately wanted to make sure that you were able to share your story with all of us,
Yeah,
which now expanded to the entire performance marketing community. And you and Sean and Rob created Blacks in Performance Marketing. And so tell us a little bit about that today, what you guys are doing, and like as you like to share. I think you use the phrase, and I don't want to steal from you, but for those that want to continue the conversation, that's
right,
who you want
right.
to be able to have, you want to be able to see each month.
Yeah, and I also, want to call out Mike Free as well with Lead Generation World. He was really the catalyst for Blacks in Performance Marketing, or at the time we had
Awesome.
called it Blacks in Lead Generation. Um,
Yes.
and what was interesting is that, Mike Free said to us, look, I just want to create the space, right, for you all to come together. And I will do whatever I can to help with that mission. And so when you look at it and you have Lead Generation World, you have Consumer Consent Council now creating a group that's called the Consumer Consent Council DEI Committee.
Yeah.
Individuals that are coming on and telling their stories about DEI, and we're doing a lot of, help, whether it be with nonprofit organizations, amplifying who they are, or having conversations that are about what individual companies are doing, or highlighting individuals. And we've gone as far as we even had a blind individual come on and talking about accessibility, right? So,
Yeah.
this issue of DEI also includes accessibility and belonging. So it's now expanded to DEIAB. And so, really, it's a matter of bringing everybody together at all times. Um, what we've done with Blacks in Performance Marketing at this point is continue to have the conversation there that allows Black individuals within the industry to come together, to stay together, get to know each other, fraternize within,
Yeah.
any sort of conferences that are taking place. It really allows us to have a place where we can come together and get to know each other. And I know that that satisfies kind of the, what's happened between even Sean and I in order to just kind of build on this and make it a much bigger organization. So one of the things I would like to say is I highly encourage, anyone within the space that wants to be involved in Blacks in Lead Generation or even the Consumer Consent DEI Committee to reach out. We're online. We're on, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram as well, so they can find Blacks in Performance Marketing, and then directly through the consumerconsentcouncil.org website. We're also located there.
Yeah, and also, me and first of all, shout out to Mike, good friend of both of ours, and I'm glad that he helped create that forum and space with you. A lot of misconception, or it's like, hey, I'm white, can I participate? And, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I love trying to help, but I think everybody else should know that they can, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. We're an all-inclusive organization, right? I mean, I think that, if you are interested in understanding perspectives of minorities and underrepresented people, I mean, these are places where you can go to understand more. I will say that we've had a number of HR professionals from various organizations within the industry that have joined. I love seeing individuals that are in our space that even come back.
Yes.
So kind of shout out to Ross Shankin for always being there and around. But you know, it's really important for people to understand the perspectives of others, right? And that's why I
Yes.
use the phrase continuing the conversation, right? The conversation has to continue. If you don't have the conversation, you're not thinking about what the issues are or what some of the challenges of others may be.
Yeah, well said. Well, before I let you go, I want to have some fun for a second. So, 49ers coming off a big win. I think Christian McCaffrey had what they call a football hat trick yesterday with a throwing touchdown, passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. Well, about 10 years ago, you and I made a Super Bowl bet. We called it the hoodie bet, which one of us was going to buy each other the winning Super Bowl's hoodie. So here's the Ravens, here's the Ravens hoodie that you honored and you got for me. Thank you. Um, Good news is there's Super Bowls here in Arizona this year. Do you think there's a chance my Ravens, who just traded for Roquan Smith, hot off the press, could face the 49ers in a rematch?
Well, my 49ers just picked up Christian McCaffrey, and
Yeah,
you saw what he did yesterday without the services of Debo Samuel. So, it's going to be interesting to see how we can finish out the year. It's going to be exciting, and would love to see that matchup once again.
it is. It'll be awesome, man. And
But Joey, before we
yeah.
go too far, though, this is Halloween, right?
Uh-oh.
And so,
Ah!
and given that it is Halloween, I had to go back a little ways.
Oh, you
You've been
got me.
known to be the man in costume.
You
And,
got me.
of course, this was one of the early days of LeadsCon when Joey Liner was running the floor wearing the Superman costume and gaining new business. So,
Cat, Captain Double Positive or whatever you want to call it. But Sean
right,
made me wear that, damn it. And
right,
I'll never
right,
live that down.
right,
Oh,
right. So, in the early days of you hosting this show, one liners, this is my one liner for you right now. So, I had to throw that in there for today.
good one, man. No, it's great. I'm so glad that you joined me today. Just real quick again, how can everybody find you? And if they want to work with you or Rate Marketplace or get involved in Blacks and Performance Marketing, what's the best way to get in
Yeah.
touch with you?
Best way to reach me, obviously, by email, just matt@ratemarketplace.com. You can find Blacks in Performance Marketing on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, just under Matt Tillman. So hard to miss.
Awesome. You rock, man. I really appreciate you sharing the story about, how Blacks in Performance Marketing started and obviously what's going on within the mortgage space and the adversity that you're going through, but you're going to flourish on the other side of it, just like you did through the financial crisis. So thanks again, man. I
Joey,
look forward to
it's
seeing you
it's been
soon.
my pleasure. It's my pleasure, and best of luck to all your new endeavors. It's been great, Joey.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right.